A brand new anime is out called Jaduugar, a witch in Mongolia, and my audience has been begging me to watch this and let them know if it's authentic. This anime is set in 13th century Iran. I talk a lot about Orientalism on this channel, plus I love anime, so I want to watch it either way. But I may have blind spots because this is Iran, not Arabia. So if there are any Irani historians or experts or lovers of that culture, please chime in the comments so we can all learn together. Yalla. This is really cute. You have this little girl running around outside and she is covered or veiled. So back in ancient Arabia, pre-1900s, all women were pretty much veiled when they were outside. Some conservative areas will have little girls covered too. So she's covering herself. You can see in the background there are women covered, and we are seeing men wearing turbans, which is typical for that time period. This anime is designed and drawn amazingly. They have the adhan playing as she's walking through these streets. The adhan is the call for prayer. A lot of times when you see media outside the Arab world play the adhan, they'll just have music playing with the adhan. So this is a huge no-no. Whenever the adhan is going on, you're supposed to stop all music to be respectful of the call for prayer. And most people outside Arabia don't know that. So I love that they have the adhan going on and there's no music. They knew this little detail. We're seeing a lot of imagery of mosques. The most common colors in Iran for mosques is this kind of blue, azure blue, cyan kind of color, and greens. They looked this up and found out these colors are often used in Iran and use those colors, and it is culturally accurate. They have a shot of a mosque and the mosque looks gigantic, and this mosque kind of reminds me more of Turkish style, very grandiose mosques compared to mosques in Iran or maybe Eastern Iran at the time, 13th century. So the anime gives us a specific location, Tus, which is the eastern side of Iran, which would be the Samanid people at the time. They would typically be the Sunni Islamic people compared to the more Western Shia Iranians at the time. There's a circular type town. Immediately my head goes to, okay, Baghdad. Legendarily, there was a town in ancient Arabia in Baghdad that had this circular design. Sometimes when you see artistic representations of it, it's very grandiose and huge, but historically it was kind of a small town. What was unique about it was the circular city design. Immediately coming off to me as like, okay, they took inspiration from the circular city of Baghdad, and I don't think this is accurate. And then you had the elevated mosque, which a lot of times in Islamic cities in ancient Arabia, ancient Iran, the mosque would be the center of the city. But having it elevated here like that is not really typical of Arabia and Iran. That's more of, I feel like, a European thing. Maybe it's, again, calling to the Blue Mosque in Turkey. That was built in the 17th century. It's more creative liberties here. I'm loving these market scenes. The people look very accurate. You have the women who are typically veiled. You have the workers with a variety of turban styles, headdresses. This would be typical for Arab Irani region at the time. One thing I do want to mention about the music, it sounds like they're playing a ghanun, an Arab stringed instrument. The way that they're playing it is more like a Western style, where it's like playing like a simple melody, and it's not typical of how you play a ghanun. We see two characters. One of them is dressed in black, and the one who's a blonde hair, blue eye, which is out of place, but maybe it has to do with the story. She says when you're out of the Iddah mourning period that, women would typically wear all black during that period. So that is culturally accurate. She names drop Allah, and saying Allah is part of everyday communication throughout the Arab world, and I'm sure even in Iran at the time. They brought up slaves. Slaves were a gigantic thing pre-1900s all over Arabia, all over the region, all over the world. It's not a surprising thing that they're talking about this, and I'm sure it's connected with the story. During a slave selling scene, the salesman says that one of the slaves costs 800 dirham. Dirhams were the name of the coins in 13th century Iran. It's too expensive for her, but he says, I'll give you to her at half price if you also accept this little slave girl. This is the main character of the story. Her name is Sitara. That is the Farsi word for star, Sitara. And let's talk about her head covering. It is a typical qitra, and she has like an agal and a bow on the top. This is just, hey, let's make her have a unique design. It's calling towards more like Arabian male headdresses, but they made it in a cute way, and it's going to be the main character in an anime, so I get that they're giving her this unique style to make sure she looks unique and stands out compared to all the other characters. And you can even see her hair is very long too. She's being very kawaii. You see that the women, they are wearing the hijab, but you see their front bangs and hair. So I'm from Kuwait. There is a large number of Iranians who live there and Irani descent Kuwaitis. And you can typically point them out, the women at least, because of their hijab style, which is showing their bangs or sometimes even half of their head and their hair is showing. It's a misconception that the hijab has to cover the entirety of the head and all of the hair. This comes down to interpretation. The exact way to wear the veil or the head covering isn't explicitly stated in the Quran. So Islamic scholars have to use the hadith or the writings about Islam and the Prophet Muhammad that came after the Quran. They have to use the Quran and the hadith to interpret a style that works for their people. That's why you will see a variety of hijab styles, fully covering the head, fully covering the hair, a little hair showing, or in the case of Iran, you'll see their bangs, or sometimes all the way up, like their hijab is on the back of their head. Comes down to interpretation. It's not monolithic. This character brings the little girl to her brother, and she says something wonderful here. Slave or no, it's the duty of every Muslim to seek knowledge. This is very true in terms of the culture and in terms of Islam. Even though there were slaves, it is part of the culture to teach them and be smart, at least in terms of Islamic knowledge and the Quran, the holy book of the Muslims. I like this addition. He says it's very important to recite the Quran, and this is a true cultural thing about Islamic countries. It is very revered to not only be able to read the Quran, but also to recite it. He's reciting the Quran and something sticks out to me. In Arabic, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This specific phrase is called the tasmi'ah. You start off every single Quranic verse, I think except one, always starts out with this phrase. So when you hear this, typically you know that someone is going to start reading from the Quran. This is correct. Now, religiously, you're supposed to read and recite the Quran in Arabic. It's a unique thing about Islam. People who don't even speak Arabic will only learn and recite the Quran in Arabic specifically. And devout people who don't speak Arabic will even learn how to read Arabic specifically to read the Quran. He's saying this in Japanese, not Arabic, and that's what sticks out to me. But let us be fair. Okay, they had a choice. Are we going to have this Japanese voice actor say the Arabic tasmi'ah and completely butcher it, which could be seen as controversial or insensitive, especially to Muslims who are more religious? Or are we just going to do it in Japanese because he knows how to say it and people will understand it? This creative decision, I think, was a good call. They could have hired another voice actor just specifically for this line. It'll be a little jarring because the voices are not the same, but he's speaking a different language, speaking in Arabic. If they wanted to be 100% accurate, but I get this and it's okay to me. She can't read it and she just does another cute anime. While she's trying to run away, her headdressing accidentally falls off. She doesn't notice and she runs into this character named Muhammad. This is culturally accurate. A lot of people in Arabia are named Muhammad. I'm pretty sure it's the most common name, not only in Arabia, but also the world. If you meet an Arab person and you guess their name is Muhammad, honestly, you have a 60-70% chance that it is, because Muhammad is the prophet of Islam, highly revered, highly respected, highly loved. So people commonly name their children after the prophet. He sees her without her head covering, her hair is exposed. He immediately, being a conservative Muslim, even a boy, would say, hey, whoa, your hair is uncovered. I can't be looking at you. This is improper. door. She immediately says, it's okay, I'm a little girl, which aligns with how it works in most of the world. Younger children, usually under the age of 12 or 13, are not seen as required to be covered except in very conservative Islamic countries or areas. Muhammad drops a water bucket into the courtyard. It scares the people below who don't know about it, but the people on the roof are calm because he's teaching a philosophical lesson about predicting or knowing the future. I love this little detail because it's calling to the Islamic Golden Age. From 800 to 1300 CE, there was a blooming of knowledge, philosophy, mathematics from the Islamic areas, especially modern day Iraq and Iran areas. Sitara and the woman are unveiled here because they're in a private space. There's a scene where they're heating up the tandoor, or the clay underground style oven, where you press the dough against the walls and it gets cooked, and you jump in there and bring the bread out. This is called naan in Farsi, and in Kuwait we call it khubz Irani, which means Irani bread. In Kuwait, it basically in every neighborhood you can go and get this exact style of bread, and I swear to you, it is the most beautifully tasting bread in the entire world, especially when you get it fresh. They show a scene of them praying, and they have the prayer rug, or the sajada. One thing I do want to point out, in Shia Islam, which is predominantly most of Iranis are Shia, you're supposed to pray with what's called the turba. It's a small little clay stone that you rest your forehead against. This is not an inaccuracy because, again, this is Eastern Iran, and at that time it would have been predominantly still under Sunni control. Just a little factoid I wanted to tell you about. I like this little element that they added in. So this character is holding what's called the misbah. The misbah are little prayer beads. What we see here are prayer beads that are quite large and atypical. Usually the misbah has 33 beads. What you do with it is you count each bead and you recite Subhanallah. You do that 33 times. Then you go back around and you recite Alhamdulillah 33 times. And then you do it one more time and you say Allahu Akbar 33 times. This all adds up to 99, which is, in Islam, it is known that Allah has 99 names. So I like this addition, but it's a little bit different. We don't see 33 beads here. Oh no, man. They have the bathhouse with the topless women. This right here, the hammam, the bathhouse where all the women are talking and naked, is a complete Orientalist fabrication. It's a fantasy. Bathhouses existed in the Islamic world. They were borrowed from the Romans. The Byzantines took it from the Romans and then it went into the Arab lands. But the idea that the women are topless and all talking to each other is like a sexy fantasy thing. This is not how it was. Traditionally, there would be private areas, and in the public areas, you would cover yourselves. You wouldn't just be naked and just walking around. Many Europeans who were reading about these bathhouses in the 1700s and 1800s would make these paintings and writings and depictions. Looks like there's a ton of sexual pleasure, and all these sexy, beautiful women were all walking around naked to entice the male gaze and the male fantasy of what Islamic women did, the exoticization of these women, the fetishization of women. It's deeply problematic, and it's sad to see this depiction here like that. I would have given this scene some leeway if they were all covered up in the public area, but as you can see, there's a bunch of topless women. This is not truthful, and this is Orientalist. Muhammad is calling for his bomb. He peers into the room, and Sitara does not have her headdress on, so he quickly averts his eyes. Many Westerners think that modesty is only a woman thing in the Islamic world, but that's not true. It also extends to men. This is why most men, when they go outside, they're wearing headdressings. In this anime, you can see the men are wearing turbans, and this is their form of modesty. And men are taught also not to look at women, especially when they don't have a head covering on. This is reflected in the Quran and the Hadith and the teachings of the Islamic world. In the subtitles, it reads Ustad Kamal al-Din. Ustad is the Farsi way to say teacher, but we hear the voice actor say sensei.
Kamaruddin sensei da yo.
The translators wanted to reflect the teachings and culture of the Irani people, so they switched it to Ustad. I like that. Muhammad tells Sitara that he wants to leave to go to a better school in the search of knowledge. Not just Islamic knowledge, but in search of the truth. This reflects the culture at the time during the Islamic Golden Age. People were freely allowed to search for the truth, even if it was to get into conflict with Islam. Remember, Islam was pretty new at the time, and people were open to interpretations, into scholarly readings of Islam. They really cared about the truth the most at the time, so it was okay to openly talk about these things, to be in conflict, to be contradictory, all in the search for truth. Because at the time they thought that Islam was the one way, so whatever you find, it is gonna rebound and reflect onto Islam. So it was very open, and it was an amazing time. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite ancient philosophers at the time is Al-Mu'ari. Al-Mu'ari was known as a free thinker, and it's debated whether he was actually an atheist or deist. A lot of his writings leaned more towards atheism. He was open in the society and people knew him. And another thing that I love about him is he possibly could be one of the first ever Islamic or Arabian vegans. I'm vegan myself. That's why I really love the Mu'ari guy. I'll link below and you can read up about him. And this is an example of how open the society was during the Golden Age of Islam, certainly in certain regions and areas. We get a shot of the city, and yeah, this is like communicating to me Turkey Blue Mosque. This is not typical of Eastern Irani regions. One could make the argument that this is Orientalist because they're just, mishmashing the different areas. Honestly, I don't sense that. I just sense that they wanted to make a cool looking city and they borrowed elements from the wider region to create this, not in a negative or bad way, just as in a way to be like, hey, this is an anime, we want to make it look cool, while also kind of being respectful to the region. That's what I feel. Before he leaves, he goes over to Sitara and says, hey, I know you can't read, but I'll write really simple letters so that when you learn, then you'll be able to read the letters. Like, this is very cute. He wants to instill that passion of learning into her, which hopefully with my channel, I instill the same thing into you, all you people. Learn, educate yourself, search for the truth. Fast forward 8 years later, and Sitara is now reading from the Quran. The owner of Sitara shows up, and she's got what looks like a male style hagal and qitra on her, and there's a little decorative golden thing at the top here. Is this accurate or not? If you know, let me know, because I'm not sure. I'm just saying it comes off more as an Arabian Peninsula thing rather than an Irani thing. Muhammad writes in his letter that he's learning a lot about mathematics, philosophy, medical arts from a school founded by Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina was a real life figure who is renowned in the Muslim world even to this day. He was an incredible astronomer, philosopher, alchemist, geographer, and he was born and was from the Samanid area. He wrote a lot of things in Arabic, but also in Persian too. I like that they included a real life figure into this moment. It goes to show you that the creators of the show really know their stuff. They studied about these things and they wanted to be accurate. So name dropping one of the most important philosophers in the Muslim lexicon is incredible. They also name drop Greek philosophers, Euclid and Ptolemy. Their teachings came into the Islamic world, and the Islamic scholars, astronomers built upon those and took it even further. She repeats here what she said earlier: seeking knowledge is the duty of every Muslim. It is definitely a huge thing that is taught throughout the Muslim area to this day. She's looking through books and learning, and it's an amazing scene where we have this young little girl just learning these things, and it's really beautiful. It's tapping into the life of knowledge at that time. Then we see scenes of an army being run by this little kid who may become the antagonist of the series, but they kind of cliffhanger it here. We don't know who he really is, to add a little suspense. And that's the end of the episode. What do I think about this anime? It's wonderful. They're borrowing elements from ancient Arabia, ancient Iran, and it comes off as very respectful. They're doing it in a beautiful way, trying to showcase what the world was like at that time. The cornerstone of all this is a young little girl, which is a unique thing. She's a slave girl trying to get knowledge. She's being inspired by this little kid, Muhammad. He has a thirst for knowledge and it extends to her. That's what happens when you hear someone talking about things that are wonderful when you're educating. It has this spark kind of thing that makes you like want to get knowledge yourself. They are being very accurate with the clothing, some creative liberties. They're being very accurate with the culture at that time, some creative liberties. The town feels more like the famous circular town in Iraq, not specifically Iran, but I get it. I love how they're bringing in the Muslim elements, the reading of the Quran, the misbah, making sure that women are veiled, and men even seeing women unveiled is like, oh, that's immodest. If I have one criticism, it's the hammam, the bathhouse scene. That is ick. That honestly shouldn't have been in there, and it just reeks of this Orientalist fantasy, and I don't like its addition here. If they just had covered all the women in the public areas, I would have pointed it out, but I wouldn't have said, oh, it's like this fantasy thing. But overall, this is coming through to me as something that is showcasing the culture of the Islamic people at the time, and I view it as a net positive. And I really love that the main character is a little girl. That's what makes it unique. Those are my thoughts on Jaduugar. What do you think? Comment below.